One carnivorous dinosaur grew so enormous that even Tyrannosaurus rex no longer seemed untouchable. Its skull reached farther forward, and its teeth worked like serrated slicing blades. It lived among some of the largest prey animals ever known. This was Giganotosaurus, a southern giant that rivaled T. rex in scale, but reached that size by a very different path. Yet these two predators were never enemies. They never saw one another in life, never competed for the same carcass, and never faced each other across an ancient floodplain. Giganotosaurus lived in South America nearly 30 million years before T-Rex appeared in North America. Any battle between them is pure fiction. Their fossils, however, offer a far more revealing comparison. They show that evolution produced at least two very different ways to build a multi-ton predator. Giganotosaurus was discovered in the rocks of Patagonia, inside a Cretaceous world inhabited by enormous herbivorous dinosaurs. Its original skeleton was incomplete, but enough of the skull, spine, hips, and limbs survived to identify an animal of extraordinary proportions. The first scientific description estimated it at roughly 12.5 meters long, although every precise measurement depends on how the missing bones are restored. A second specimen complicated the picture. It consisted only of part of a lower jaw. But that fragment appeared larger than the equivalent bone in the original individual. Its describers estimated that it may have belonged to an animal about 8% larger. That estimate matters, but it does not represent a complete body. A jaw fragment cannot reveal the exact length, build, or mass of the animal that carried it. This is why claims that Giganotosaurus was conclusively the largest predatory dinosaur must be treated with caution. The fossil record proves a giant existed, but not one whose dimensions are perfectly known. Tyrannosaurus rex presents a different case. Paleontologists have recovered a much larger sample of skeletons, including several relatively complete adults. One of the most massive, known as Scotty, possessed exceptionally robust hips and limbs, and may have outweighed other famous T-Rex specimens. Yet even here, the numbers are not absolute. Body mass is reconstructed from bones, proportions, and mathematical models. A fossil does not preserve a scale reading from the day the animal died. What the skeletons clearly show is that the largest T-Rex individuals were extremely deep-bodied and powerfully built. This is where the familiar question, which dinosaur was bigger, begins to break apart. Giganotosaurus may have matched or exceeded some T-Rex specimens in total length, but length is only one measurement. A longer animal is not automatically heavier, stronger, or more resistant to injury. T-Rex had a broad torso, a heavily built skeleton, and an unusually deep skull. Giganotosaurus had a more elongated head. It belonged to a lineage with different cranial proportions and a different overall build. Comparing length alone ignores body thickness, jaw structure, and the prey each predator attacked. The most important differences between them were concentrated in their skulls. Giganotosaurus carried a long, relatively low head, armed with serrated, side-compressed teeth. Those teeth formed sharp cutting edges, well suited to penetrating flesh and widening wounds as the head pulled away. The exact movements used during an attack cannot be recovered directly from bone, but tooth shape and skull mechanics suggest that. Giganotosaurus relied more on cutting and damaging soft tissue than on repeatedly crushing through thick bone. Its weapon was not simply a weaker version of a tyrannosaur jaw. It was a different feeding system. Recent biomechanical research on large theropods supports this. This distinction is crucial. Giant allosauroids, the broader group containing Giganotosaurus, retained skull designs that experienced comparatively low stress under modeled feeding. Loads. Tyrannosaurids followed another path, increasing jaw muscle volume and bite force. Even though this also placed greater stress on the skull, T-Rex possessed a deeper, wider, and more heavily reinforced head. Its teeth were thick rather than blade-thin, with strong roots, and rounded cross-sections able to tolerate forces arriving from different directions. These were not delicate knives. They were durable puncturing tools, driven by an exceptionally powerful jaw. Biomechanical studies produced different numerical estimates for the bite force of T-Rex, but they consistently identify it as extreme for a terrestrial animal. One detailed model estimated rear tooth forces reaching tens of thousands of newtons in large adults. More important than the headline number was what happened at the tooth tips. The pressure there was sufficient to fracture cortical bone. Fossils confirm that this ability was. Fossils show it was used. Bones from horned dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, and other tyrannosaurs preserve deep punctures and feeding damage consistent with the teeth of T-Rex. The animal did not merely strip flesh from the surface of a carcass. It could penetrate, break, and consume parts of the skeleton. That does not mean every bite shattered bone, or that T-Rex always attacked with maximum force. Living predators adjust their behavior to the resistance of the food in front of them. But when needed, this ability gave T-Rex access to tissues and marrow that many other carnivores could not reach. Giganotosaurus faced different ecological pressures. Its environment included gigantic sauropods, long-necked herbivores whose adult bodies could outweigh any individual predator. Attacking such prey would not necessarily require crushing the thickest bones. A predator might instead target flesh, blood vessels, or other vulnerable regions, gradually weakening an animal too large to overpower instantly. This remains an inference, not a recorded event. No fossil preserves a complete Giganotosaurus to hunt. There is also no direct proof that members of the species coordinated in stable packs. Several large carnivores found in one location can suggest social behavior, but they may also have gathered around food, water, or a natural trap. For that reason, Giganotosaurus should not automatically be portrayed as a cooperative pack hunter. It may have hunted alone. It may sometimes have tolerated others near a carcass. It may even have joined temporary groups. At present, the fossils cannot confidently distinguish between these possibilities. Scientific reconstruction is strongest when it separates what the bones demonstrate from what remains plausible but unconfirmed. The same caution applies to speed. Both Giganotosaurus and T. Rex walked on two powerful hind limbs. Their bodies balanced horizontally by long, muscular tails. Neither moved like a slow, dragging reptile, but neither should be imagined sprinting and turning with the effortless agility of a much smaller animal. At multi-ton body sizes, every rapid step placed enormous loads on the limbs. Maximum speed estimates depend on assumptions about muscle strength, posture, body mass, and ground conditions. The evidence can establish that these animals were capable terrestrial predators. It cannot provide a reliable speedometer reading. They may not have needed extreme speed. Large predators often succeed through positioning, short acceleration, surprise, limited endurance, or the selection of vulnerable prey. A failed pursuit also carries consequences. For an animal this large, a serious fall or leg injury could be fatal even without another predator nearby. Their prey also shaped the risks they faced. T-Rex lived alongside horned dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, armored ankylosaurs, and other heavily built herbivores. These animals were not passive meals. Horns, beaks, powerful tails, and sheer body mass could injure or kill an attacker. The reinforced skull and durable teeth of T-Rex may have been especially useful in close, forceful encounters with large, resistant prey. A deep bite could grip tissue, damage bone, and withstand violent movement. Giganotosaurus appears to have emphasized a different balance. An elongated cutting system capable of creating severe soft tissue damage, while avoiding some of the extreme skull stresses accepted by giant tyrannosaurids. So which animal had the superior weapon? For slicing flesh, the blade-like teeth and elongated jaws of Giganotosaurus offered clear advantages. For delivering and surviving exceptionally forceful, bone-damaging bites, T-Rex was more specialized. For hunting immense sauropods, Giganotosaurus belonged to the relevant predator-prey system, although its exact method remains unknown. For reconstructing body size, T-Rex is represented by more complete large individuals, while the upper limits of Giganotosaurus depend heavily on fragmentary. Material. No single category creates a universal champion, and a fictional fight cannot solve the problem. The result would depend on the age, condition, experience, and size of each individual. It would depend on who attacked first, where the bite landed, and whether either animal lost its footing or chose to withdraw. None of those variables can be recovered from fossils. A confident battle verdict would reveal more about the storyteller than about the dinosaurs. The scientifically meaningful comparison lies somewhere else. Giganotosaurus and T-Rex reveal two evolutionary trade-offs. Giganotosaurus belonged to a lineage that achieved giant size while retaining a comparatively lower stress skull design. Its head and teeth were suited to penetrating and slicing flesh. T-Rex invested more heavily in jaw muscles, cranial reinforcement, and thick teeth, producing extraordinary bite performance. That system allowed it to damage bone, but biomechanical models suggest it also imposed greater stress on the skull itself. One strategy did not replace the other. Each evolved in a separate lineage, on a separate continent, within a separate community of prey. Giganotosaurus was not an unfinished T-Rex, nor was T-Rex simply a shorter, heavier Giganotosaurus. They were independent answers to one challenge. How can a bipedal predator grow to several tons and still capture, kill, and process prey large enough to sustain it? Did Giganotosaurus make T-Rex seem less invincible? In one sense, yes. Its discovery proved that Tyrannosaurus was not the only theropod capable of reaching extraordinary dimensions. Giant predatory dinosaurs evolved in the southern hemisphere long before T-Rex appeared, using skulls and teeth built around different mechanical priorities. But Giganotosaurus did not dethrone T-Rex, nor does the evidence justify naming either animal the undisputed greatest predator of the Mesozoic. What the fossils reveal is more interesting than a winner. Evolution did not produce one perfect design for a super predator. It produced multiple solutions, some built around slicing and others around crushing, some shaped by gigantic sauropods, and others by heavily defended herbivores. Giganotosaurus and Tyrannosaurus never fought, yet together they reveal just how diverse the age of giant predators truly was, and how many forms those giants could take.